questions, just let me know on the chat. Mabasa na ko na later. So going back, our new topic for today is Byzantine architecture. So here you can see the timeline. Based sa katanyang history of architecture 1, you have Egyptian, Near East, Greek, Roman, and ato nang gitakol na we've also discussed early Christian architecture. And the next one is Byzantine. If you notice, na siya line and somewhere here at the bottom, there's a certain type of architecture that occurs during the Byzantine era. Pero lahi na siya nga location. Pero nagdungan sila. In terms of year, nagdungan sila og start. Murag nagdungan og emerge this type of architecture. So if you would ask kung saan na siya diha, sir, later on we will learn that is Islamic architecture. Because Byzantine architecture, there's this part nga nasakop sila sa Islamic. But initially, Byzantine architecture is Christian siya. Part siya sa murag after early Christian, ni boom ang Byzantine architecture. Okay, so again, same gyapon, no? Si Constantine I gyapon, no? This is the emperor that plays a major role nganong ni boom or nganong ni emerge ang Byzantine architecture. So aside from early Christian, wherein Constantine I or Constantine I is the major player during that early Christian. He is also the same emperor na dako og role in this Byzantine architecture. Okay. So what are the influences? So again, when we discuss types of architecture or the era of architecture, we always discuss its influences. So unsay nagpa-influence anang architecture in terms of geographical, geological, religious, social, climatic. So those are the influences wherein each of those certain types of architecture are being referred to, are being designed into that kind. So in terms of geographical influence, we all know that Byzantine came from the word Byzantion, which is Byzantion. That's the place, or another term niya is Byzantium or Byzantium. That's the place wherein Constantine the First, the emperor, the Roman emperor, pagka-baptize niya o Christianism or nahimo siyang Christian, what he do is iyang gi-transfer ang center of Roman Empire sa Byzantium. So lugar ng Byzantium, no? So iyang gi-transfer ngadto ang center of Roman Empire because feeling niya or during that time, grabe na ka-dense ang Roman Empire, and then he said that it needs a new area wherein ngadto siya maka-rule as an emperor. So bali na hitabo during that time na bahin, no? There's an emperor nga nahibilin sa Roman Empire, and Constantine the First as the Roman emperor also, siya na nag-rule sa iyang gibalhinan nga Byzantium, which is later on renamed as Constantinople. So kato nga area, yang gi-rename, syempre para siya iyang name siguro, yang gi-rename as Constantinople. So, nga na siya, no? From Byzantium, niabot si Constantine the First, yang giusab ang pangan sa lugar, yang gihimong Constantinople. And then later on, present day is called Istanbul, which is in Turkey. I think na salida sa Netflix nga ngadto gi-shoot sa Turkey. I forgot the, pero ano sa siya, this is siya English, Turkish sa ang iyahang ano. Pero may ginang gipakita, nindot kayo ang do power to siya nga movie, but ang setting is in Istanbul. So makita nimo ang mga architectural features ngadto nga area. Bale Byzantine architecture makita nimo ngadto nga movie. So aside from geographical, so here we have geological, no, influence. So Constantinople or the Byzantium had no good building stone. So wala sila yung mga materials na stone. So what do? They use their local materials such as clay. So abundant sila sa clay. So what did they do with the clay? They made bricks, and then they also use the concrete, which is invented by the Roman architecture. So aside from bricks, nagamit sila og concrete. Pero wa sila nagamit maayo og stone. So if you look at the Byzantine architecture niya, medyo naa sila stone or marble, imported na siya. It's not from Byzantium, or it's not from the place wherein they've erected their buildings. So kuha sila stone from other countries, from other cities, or from other localities. So it was considerably influenced by the multitude of monolithic columns as such sizes as were obtainable from the different quarries. So again, no, ni kuha sila ni quarry sila, bali ni count sila sa laing area, and then ilang gi-transport to this kaning Constantinople, or what we called Byzantium. So ingana sila, no, ingana ka powerful ang emperor. If wala tayo nga material, we could go somewhere else, go quarry for that kind of material, and then transport that. Kanang pag-transport siguro it would take months and years because we don't have that kind of technology same sa ato ang gigamit karon. So how about the climate, the climatic influence? So the Romans adapted their methods of building to the eastern climate of the new capital and to those conditions of life which had there already created. So flat roofs for summer resort are combined with oriental domes, small windows, no, sheltering arcades surrounded the open courts. So in terms of climate or climatic, medyo dry season sila nga, dry and sunny in terms of climate, in terms of climatic influence. So that is why pwede silang mag flat roofs kaya may uwan, no? So flat roofs, and then they've also incorporated domes, no, combined with oriental domes. Small windows, often high up, and otherwise unbroken walls. So small windows para in terms of dry climate man good, they have to contain their building wherein dili makasud ang kainit. So if you have bigger windows, bigger openings, bigger arches, ingana kanang grabe daghan kayong openings, what would happen is musud ang kainit. It's not just the heat from the sun, it's also the heat nga gida sa air. So that is why they have to provide small windows para lang sa ilahang natural lighting. So wala nila ingon nga gi-open ang ilahang building, small windows lang, and mostly located high up. So sheltering arcades surrounded the open courts. So again, nagyapon sila yung mga arcaded area, no? Na yung mga open courts, but still they provide this sheltering arcades. So if ever grabe kainit, ngadto na sila mo surround, or ngadto na sila mo position sa sheltering arcades. So that's the climatic influence. Again, dry and sunny ang Byzantine architecture, ang ilahang climate. For the religious influence, Christianity ni siya. Christianity, which is si Constantine I ang nagdala. So for the social influence, Constantine transferred his capital to Byzantium. So mo na ito gi-discuss, no? In order to provide a more central seat of government for the empire. An eastern city of which the population had introduced Eastern methods of life and corrupt conditions of the Roman social economy. So ang iyahang mga learnings from Roman Empire, good and also bad, nadala niya nga to sa Byzantine area. So again, no, in terms of social influence, dili lang si Constantine I ang niadto sa Byzantium. Constantine I including his people. So katong mga characteristics of those people nga iyang gidala, and also the characteristics of Constantine from the Roman Empire, ilan ang nadala sa Byzantine or Byzantium. So in terms of social influence, this group of people that transferred on that area, mo ginay naghatag nila og kanang new lifestyle, siguro dako kay changes in terms of their building views. Okay. So again, no, social influence is based primarily by Constantine. So from Roman Empire sila, Constantine and the group, no? From Roman Empire, ni transferred sila sa Byzantium, or ilan nang renamed as Constantinople. In terms of religious influence, Christianism or Christianity. In terms of geological influence, bricks and concrete ilang gigamit. And if you see some stones, those stones are not exactly from the place, from the Constantinople, but they quarry it from other sites, from other locations, and transferred to Byzantium or Constantinople. So in terms of climate, dry and sunny. So that is why their buildings, makita nimo na yung mga flat roofs, but mostly their buildings are made of domes. Their windows are smaller, quite smaller, and placed higher. Dili sa ubos, no? Taas nila gibutang. And in terms of geography, the Byzantine architecture was born in Byzantium, from the term itself, Byzantine, Byzantium, which is renamed into Constantinople and now the current Istanbul. Okay, so hopefully nakuha ninyo, no, ang mga influences in terms of geography, geology, geological, climatic, religion, and social. Okay, so we'll now go to characteristics. So unsa gid ay, if makakita mig building, sir, madali ba namong maingon na okay, Byzantine architecture na siya. So these are the characteristics so that you can distinguish a certain building if it is a Byzantine architecture or other type of architecture. So number one, gives a feeling of verticality. No? So mo na siya, no? Gives a feeling of verticality. If you compare it to early Christian architecture is horizontal, no? Pataas, palapad ang building, churches, 'di ba? Basilica, palapad, no? Palapad. Rectangular plan. But here, the very very obvious difference is patas-anay og tower kani sila niya. Nga naman, well, what do you think is the reason nga patas-anay sila tower? It's because during this time, dili na kayo nga naka murag before man go during the early Christian, there's a certain part wherein dili pa accepted ang Christianity or kanang Kristyanismo or Christian, di pa kayo accepted. So they have to dili pa kayo nga naka-boom ang Christianism. So this time, this is the highlight of Christianity. So murag nga rin nila gi-portray nga we're very proud to create this church and call ourselves Christians. That is why patas-anay. No, it's just the same today nga if you're the place wherein you have the tallest building, ikaw ang sikat. So like now, di ba? Ang tallest building is in Dubai. So Dubai now is the center of those developments. So syempre ang other countries na nasa uban mag-design na sila ng patas-anay nila, no? So yung nga nasa before, dili lang kay sa karon nga patas-anay pila ka kilometers ang building in terms of height. Before nga nasa na sila. The more high in terms of height, mas sikat ka na nga time. So aside from verticality, second is simplicity of the exterior treatment. So ilang gipatasan, but still the way they design their exterior, the way they treat their exterior materials is just the material itself. Wala sila gidungag. Dili para karon ba nga natay mga cladding? Are familiar with those terms, no? Kana mga cladding. Cladding is just putting a certain material on top of the other. Like for example, if you have a concrete, a bare concrete, imong gipatungan og wood na ano, that's cladding itself. So for example, na kay concrete, bare concrete or CHB, imong patungan or imong sa tawagan ng term ana niya. Imong tabunan og aluminum sheets. So gitawag siya aluminum cladding. Before, wala na siya ni occur. What they do is, what their material is, they show it. So if their material is bricks imong makita sa ilang building. If their material they use is stone, marbles that they quarry, ilang gikuha sa other lugar, since wala sila na ang type of material, mo na yung makita nimo sa ilang building. They don't provide coverings on their buildings. That is why it's called simplicity. So inibutang nila ang material, that's it. That's the facade now. No paint, no other treatments, no cladding. That's for the exterior. But for the interior, they provide a lot of treatments. So ngadto na sila nibawi sa ilang interior. So richness in the interior. So it's just the same with, you can see some similarities here in early Christian. In early Christian, simple sa ilang exterior. But ang ilahang focus is more on the horizontality. But here in Byzantine architecture, pataas, no, verticality, especially sa ilang mga towers. Simple ang ilang exterior but they've adopt a rich interior. Mas rich interior pa na siya compared sa early Christian architecture. And lastly, which is the very, very distinct, no, or mo na siya dali nimo mailhan ba for Byzantine architecture is the fusion of the domical construction of the east and the classical columnar styles of the west. So ilan ang gi-combine, no? Kay naa sila'y dome here sa ilahang mga top of their structures. Butang sila mga dome nga. And for the columns, ilang gigamit ang mga columnar styles of the west like kanang mga Roman Empire and Greek Empire. So nganong gitawag sila west east? Since gitransfer ni Constantinople the First ang iyahang group of people, i-transfer sila sa Byzantium or Byzantine, gitawag na sila og murag naabot na sila sa eastern part. Bali di ba kan mga Middle East, di ba? Middle East duol man diha, no? I think Turkey is within that location. So ang west part nila is the Greece and the Roman. So katong mga classical is the Greek, no? If you term classical, it's always the Greek architecture. Classical columnar styles from Greek and also from the Roman architecture, still ilahang gi-incorporate sa ilang buildings. So fusion, no? Fusion meaning combined. They combined the domical construction, which is in Roman architecture, nakahimo na sila dome, but not all, dili tanan ilang gi-dome. Here in Byzantine architecture, mostly ang ilang mga ang ilang mga churches, ang ilang mga buildings, usually nagi-dome. Okay, so take note of this. There are 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Verticality, feeling of verticality. No? Pataas na ilahang building structure. Simple ang ilang exterior. But same sa early Christian, richness in the interior treatment. And lastly, fusion of the domical construction of the east and the classical columnar styles of the west. Okay, so those are the general characteristics. So if you see a building and it will fit into these general characteristics, then you can say that's part of the Byzantine architecture. Okay, so gets, no? Wow. Next, proceed ta. Principal materials nga ilang gigamit. So there are only 2, bricks and concrete. So bricks and concrete, but they also use again stones from other countries. So again, if you check their buildings, kanang buildings under Byzantine architecture. Sir, nalagay ni stone din, nalagay marble. Those marbles are from other countries nga ilang gikwari. Ilang gikuha ngadto, ilang gikawat ngadto, and then they transport it and then di lang gi-include sa ilahang building. But the principal, meaning anang principal is main materials nga nagigamit. They use concrete and the bricks. Again, bricks is made of clay. Since clay is abundant in Byzantium or in Constantinople. So since abundant sila sa bricks, mo na ilang gigamit. But this kind of bricks kani-kani ano, mas baga sa ila class na sa una. It's way thicker and mas grabe maka-insulate in terms of heat. Kay since located sila sa dry and sunny climate, they need this type of material nga mo insulate sa heat. Buildings. Unsa may mga buildings nila? So there are only two, churches and monasteries. So in early Christian, church gihapon siya, churches and baptisteries. Here we have two, churches and monasteries. Wala na baptistery. I think siguro sa kaning nga time na baptized na siguro tanan, and siguro gamay na lang nga area ang needed for a baptism, siguro kato na lang font. So they ilan ang gitanggal ang mga baptistery. So churches and monastery na. So again, no, principal buildings, there are only two, churches and monasteries or monastery. So here, an example, Hagia Irene. So na mo pabasa ni sa Tagalog kay Hagia. Hagia Sophia, Hagia. It's actually na-learn naman siya during board exam preparation. Pag-discuss among history teacher. Hagia din na, sir. Di na Hagia. The term is Hagia Irene. Hagia means holy. So all of their churches during the Byzantine architecture is dedicated to a saint. So Holy Irene, like for example, the Hagia Sophia, mamanay pinaka, I think ilado sa tanan na. I think even though if you don't even know Byzantine architecture, you know Hagia Sophia. So Hagia Sophia is one of the best example for Byzantine architecture. So that means Hagia Sophia means Holy Sophia. So Holy Saint Sophia. So yan na siya. So most of their, I think all ganit siguro, no? All of their churches are dedicated sa isa ka saint. So this one is dedicated to Saint Irene. So if you notice, domes, gamit sila domes. This one, bricks. Makita niyo color pa lang dan, bricks na. So ang ilahang color sa bricks before class, natural bricks gan. Dili para sa to karon nga kolora na lang o pina orange gamay para mapormang bricks na. So kuha na to marag daya nga pagka bricks na. So before ug unsa ilang material, since ang ilahang exterior is simple exterior, makita gid mo sa ilahang buildings that okay, they use bricks as their main material. And they have this one, bigger iyang windows. I think the climate here located is medyo layo na ni siya sa katong medyo init gid nga lugar. So makita nimo na siya mga dago-dagong windows. And here sa taas, sa pinaka-dome gid niya is the smaller windows. Okay. Another example is a example of a monastery. So this one, Daphne Monastery. So if you notice, dagko na ni siya nga simulated stones, which is during that time nakahimo na sila og blocks of concrete. Pero di na siya hollow blocks kasi the difference between hollow blocks and blocks of concrete is nara sa iyang term, no? Hollow. Ang hollow blocks is kasi katong mga hollow wherein you could provide cement. This time around, they've made a concrete good nga murag sa kuan pa na sa advertisement pala or commercial, isang blocking konkreto katong gibunalan gito. So mo na ilang gihimo as buildings. But this base, kani silang base, no? They nako na research, they use this as stone. kani siya. Kay ligon, mas ligon mo gud ang stone. Concrete is good, pero kuha naman siya good, murag simulated stone, murag hinimo na nimo ba nga stone, man-made stone na siya ang concrete. Compared sa actual stone gud nga mas ligon gud siya. So nakoy na research kaning pinaka bottom part, made of ano gud siya, original stone, and then the upper part ilan na nang concrete. Okay, so again, no, there are two principal buildings in Byzantine architecture. Number one is the church. Number two is the monastery. So duha ra nakabuk na dali ra nyo matimanan. So in terms of construction, so unsa may type of construction nila before? So here we have nagyapon, no? Columnar and trabeated, or what we call post and lintel. Same gyapon. They've used this in early Christian architecture. And at the same time, gigamit gyapon nila during the Byzantine architecture. And right now, bisag karon, nagyapon ta ani nga type columnar and trabeated. Arc and vault. So this one, no? Arc and vault. Oh, arches. So in early Christian architecture, they use arches. And at the same time here in Byzantine architecture, nigamit gyapon ta og mga archways or arches. And lastly, domical. So domes. Makita nimo ilang mga building na mga domes here. Okay? So unsa may difference niya sa early Christian architecture? Unsay nawala? Ang truss ang nawala, no? Early Christian architecture, ang ilang roofing is made of truss. This time in Byzantine architecture, ang ilang main roofing is naka-vaulted kanina, if mo ni siya ang arc, vaulted ni siya na kani-kani mga portion. Na, and then ang ilang main part sa ilang church, amo na ang naka-dome. Ma-distinguish nyo what's the difference between arc and vault. If you connect the two arches, you will create a vault. How can I sketch? Here. If na kay, just sketch here. If na kay arc 1, another arc 2. So these are your arches. These are your arches. If you connect this part, this connection here is now your vault. So kung magkuyog na siya, no? So the arc and the vault. If imo i-connect imo the arches. This one, no? Fully nasabtan niyo ako bati kay nga sketch. No? So that's the difference, or that's what do you mean between the arc. The arc, it's this one, arc. This one is the vault. Vault. This one is the arc. Okay. So arc and vault, and the difference is na siya dome or domical structures. Okay, so how about sa plano? So we remember it in early Christian architecture, ang ilang plano nga to is rectangular because they use the basilica plan in Roman architecture. Here, centrally planned church. So centrally planned meaning ang core itself is at the center. So if asa mag-meet ang mga tao, asa magmisa, asa gid ang pag-convey sa Christianism during that time, nasa center. No, it's not the same with, di ba? The early Christian architecture, they have this rectangular plan, and then we have here the apse, the bema, and the transept here, and the nave at the center, di ba? That's the early Christian architecture na floor plan. Here, in Byzantine architecture floor plan, it's either squarish or pwede na siya octagonal or hexagonal plan. It's because this one, the center, mo na ilahang main portion or main part sa ilang church. So that's why you call centrally planned church. the main portion of the church, the center portion of the church, is the main part of the church. So cross and square plan for a cross, square, dome type of architecture. So the way they create their plan would basically have a bigger impact on the form of their dome. No? Kaya syempre if you will have a dome, di ba? Ang dome, di ba, palingin man na, di ba? Ang dome is palingin, dapat ang imuhang base is palingin sa, di ba? So if ever you have this cross plan or square plan, dapat na kay buhaton diri sa imuhang dome, which is later on we will discuss that how they transform their plan from square, from cross form, how they transform it wherein makahimo gyapon sila dome sa center. Okay? So here, possible dome placement, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So pwede ka makalima ka domes aning type of plan. So example, no? Ingana ang ilang plano. So if you compare it, if you try to look at the parts, no? Hopefully maklaro rin yung parts, but this one here is the narthex. Kani-kanina. Wait. This one, narthex. So this is the entry. So nagya po na siya, no? It could be exo or eso narthex. So entry, sud ka diha, sud ka diri. And this one here, kani siyang patuyok nga rin, is the aisle. Aisle ni siya, aisle. And here, these black ones, you can see here a lot of big columns. So musulod ka, musulod, musulod ka, musulod ka, musulod. This one here at the center is the nave. So ngari ang ilahang main part sa church. Ngari ang mga lingkuranan, ngari tanan tao magtapok. So if you notice, gamay ra ang masulod ani nga mga tawo ng mga church goers. It's because daghan man sa sila, no? Nagkadaghan na kaayo ang mga churches during this time. So dili na kaayo need nga rectangular, pataas, padakanay sa plano nga masulod. It's because the way they locate their churches are quite o sa layman's term pa na, murag kada sityo na yung mga church na yan during this time in Byzantine architecture. So the apse still nagyapoy apse. So kanin mo na ilang bema na ni repeatan, nganin nilang altar and so on and so forth. Sacristy here. Unsa ba ang sacristy? If I remember it right, sacristy nga nila ipang store ang ilahang mga useful items. So for example, kanang mga gold cups, kanang mga sininas pare, so they place it in the sacristy. For the walls, so walls is made of bricks because again their materials are bricks and concrete. So internally encrusted with rich colored marbles and glass mosaics. So ang ilang gigamit ay no sa ilang interior para matawag siya rich interior is kani siya, no? Marbles and glass mosaics. Externally plain. So unsa ang ilang material, mo ray makita nimo sa gawas, no? Faced with bricks in horizontal, oblique, mean deer, fret, or chevron, or herringbone pattern. So daghan na ani, no? Again, no? Unsa na? Horizontal, oblique, mean deer, fret, or chevron, pwede sad herringbone pattern. So later on, ato na i-discuss o unsay forma ano nila nga mga patterns. Naani siya sa parang I think after a few slides naani siya makita nato ni what are the difference between these patterns. So for the facade, faced with alternative layers of brick and stone. So makita ninyo, no? Bricks or stone, no? Ang placement sa stones. So again, no? A walls is made of bricks. Internally, gamitan siya of rich colored marbles and glass mosaics. Externally, plain lang, faced with bricks or the stone itself. So for the openings, arcades with semicircular arches. So This one, no? Arcades. So for the doors, spanned by semicircular, flat, segmental, and horseshoe arches. So yan po, no? So if windows ni siya, if himuon mo siyang door, it's just the same form. Pwede siya semicircular. Pwede po siya flat. Pwede po siya segmental. Pwede po siya horseshoe arches. The segmental one looks like this. If ma-sketch na ko. If mo ni ay mohang door, sorry. If mo ni mohang door, segment ang pagkahimo sa iyang arches. Mura naghimo og dili smooth bitaw nga curve. So segment composed of several segments. Ang horseshoe, there's a certain arch na gitawag siya horseshoe. Mura siya ni ana gamay ana. Mura siya ni dako gamay diri sa iyang entry point of horseshoe. And then ana imong entrance. So from the term itself, no, horseshoe. So mo ni siya, no, kanang semicircular, circle, murag half sa circle, that's what you call semicircular. And ang uban sa nga ilahang door is flat lang. Makita kag flat, okay ra na siya. That's still part of Byzantine architecture. So either flat, this one is semicircular, which means if imong tungaon na diha, ibutangan mo na siya diri og this one is half of a circle. Sorry, nalapas. So that's what you call semicircular. Segmental, medyo daghang segments, no, composed of several lines. Horseshoe arches looks like this. Okay, so for the roofs, methods of roofing, so we have, they use domes, bricks, stones, or concrete, or even of pottery. So domes constructed without centering by the use of large flat bricks. So the system of placing a dome. So the groupings of small domes or semi-domes around a large central dome. So mostly ang ilang gigamit gyud nga roof is made of kanang dome, which is concrete ang ilang gigamit sa paghimo nila sa dome. Aside from concrete, gigamit sila bricks, but the way they constructed their bricks is kanang same sila naghimo sa katong types or katong paghimo sa arch. Katong bitang na keystone, if you remember, katong na mga keystone and so on and so forth. That's the method in terms of constructing the roof. Okay. So since we're talking about domes, what are the types of domes? So there are five types of domes. So we have the first one is simple domes. Number 2 is compound domes. Number 3 is melon-shaped dome. Melon as in melon nga fruit. Number 4, we have serrated type of dome. And number 5, we have onion. No? Onion kanang sibuyas. No? Onion or bulbous sharp type of dome. Okay, so before we proceed to our next slide, we'll have a mga 8-minute break. 8-minute break, so you can have your water break, bathroom break, and we'll be back at around 6:45. Yeah, 6:45. Okay, so if you have any questions sa mga previous slides, just let me know. Type in sa chat and we'll answer that before we continue on our next slide. Okay, so 8-minute na break, and then we'll be back at 6:45. Hello, hello. Hello guys.
Hello,
Kumusta?
sir.
Hello, sir.
Kaya naka-snacks ra mo or naka-water break, bathroom break? Kaya,
Yes,
okay.
sir.
Do you have any questions? So again, let me know sa katong mga wala naka-join due to typhoon, internet connection problems, just let me know. I will mark them as excused for this meeting kay syempre it's out of their control ang kana mga low internet connection or bagyo, no? Walay signal. Okay, I'll check sa kinsa man ni na may gi-remove nga message wala na ko nakita anda. Okay. So far, do you have any questions? So if wala ra, no, we can proceed directly sa ato ang topics. Okay, so Lara, no? So again, no, if we go back a few slides, roofs. So methods of roofing, Byzantine architecture uses a lot of domes. Domes could ang imong ma-visualize directly. If we talk about Byzantine architecture, okay kana siya nga type of architecture, daghan kayong dome or naim domes. So that dome is made of bricks, stones, or even concrete. Kasi uban gigamit nila kanang sa pottery style. So aside from clay, they made it stone based but ilahang gi pahamisan og clay and other types of kaning gigamit nila during pottery. So domes constructed without centering. So that means kada bitawng when you construct a dome man good, dapat na kay a circular base or circular nga as a center of your structure. So katong mga wala salay ka ng centering, what they do is they made use of large flat bricks. So ngadto nila gipang place ang ilang dome. Later on makita na sa to mga examples. Makita sa to mga examples sa structure. We could see this type of roofing. Okay. So for the types of domes, we have 5. So again, first is the simple dome. Pendentives and dome are part of the same sphere. Number 2 is compound domes. So dome is not part of the same sphere. So mo na siya ang katong dili centering, no? Not centering domes. The compound domes. As the pendentives but arises above them. So the dome is raised on a high drum pierced with windows. So number 3, we have melon-shaped dome, consists of curved flutings. Number 4, serrated. Number 5, onion or bulbous sharp dome. So unsa may porma ani nila? So these are ingani ang pag ano niya. Pag yung definition. So for the simple domes, dome or pendentives and domes are part of the same sphere. So what's the pendentive? Unsa ang pendentive? Pendentive is when a dome is not based on a circular plan. So if I may sketch, hopefully makita rin nyo akong sketch guys. No? Pero wala pa ako nag-sketch right now. So for example, if you will create a dome, a normal dome is you will have a circular base. And then you will put the dome on that circular base. So that's the normal dome. Bali yan na. So you have a circular base and then butang kag dome. Mura bag half sa sphere imong giputol. So that's the dome itself. What if you will have this one, like this one, no? Kani siya. You have a rectangular plan or a square plan. What will you do? How can you provide your dome? So you will now have, or you will now provide pendentives. So gitawag na siya dome on pendentives. So how did they create this? They will, your square plan, if imo na siyang, if tap na nimo sa plano, top view. Maghimo kag circle around that square plan. Circle. Sorry, wa naigo, no? Pero dapat ang edge, ano niya, maigo sa circle. So your square plan must be within a circle. So that circle is now your dome. But what did they do? Ilan ang pahakan? So kaning pahak mo na siya. If tanaw nimo sa section, this part here mo ni ang gitanggal nimo sa imuhang dome. But still, the upper portion is still circular. Matawag yapon na siya dome even though there are certain deductives sa imuhang form. So gitawag na siya, this part right here, tawag na siya pendentives. This part right here. Again, when ta kaingon nga imuhang dome is having a pendentive, if your dome is based on a non-circular plan. So if you're having a square plan or a rectangular plan, and then buhatan ni mo dome, that dome is now dome on pendentives. Okay? So these two, kanang dome on a circular plan and dome on pendentives, those are just simple domes. Simple na siya, kitawag siya simple domes. So how about the compound? Compound, that means you combined two kinds of dome. So here, kani siya, no? Kani nga example here, you have a pendentive plan and then you will provide another dome. So since here sa pendentive nimo pwede na maka-circular here sa top part. So you'll have a circular base here. So here you will have a circular base here. So that's the part that you will now provide another dome. So pendentives plus another dome. So that means compound na siya. Composed of two types of dome, the pendentive one and the common dome. So here, another one, pendentive, naka-pendentive siya nga part. Gibutangan niya cylindrical portion wherein nakabutang pa siya mga windows. So gitawag na siya dome, drums, pendentives. So dome on drums and then on pendentives pagid. Okay. So yan ano, ang mga compound dome. There are two types. It's either pendentives plus another dome. And then here we have the pendentives. We have the drum. This one is the drum, no, kanang cylindrical part. And you have the dome on top. So high drum pierced with windows. So on that drum, pwede sila makabutang og windows. So ingani forma ang kani siya. If you look this one on a sectional view or in a elevation view, it looks like this. Dome and with pendentives. Okay. So how about for the special designed domes? So sa mga special designs, katong mga 3, 4, and 5 examples, you have the melon type of dome. Morabag ka ng melon or orange. Orange, imong gipalutan ng orange. And then imong gitunga. Kita nimo ang kaning iyahang segments, these divisions. Makita nimo ang iyahang segments or divisions. Na yung mga domes that designed like that. Another type of dome is serrated. Mura siya ka ng ice cream cone, twirl bitaw. So term for that is serrated type of dome. So katong mga architect before na ngayong taglisod sa ilahang paghimo sa dome, because again, no, the during the Byzantine architecture, the theme is verticality. So the main thing na makatch sa eye sa mga tao is the dome itself. Aside from the towers, which are called minaret, ang main parts sa ilahang buildings that are highly visible, makita gid dayon, are domes. Kaning mga dome here. So they designed domes in a way nga they've added a lot of forms. So gilang gibutangan og melon type, so melon dome. Here gilang gibutangan og kanang serrated, which is in layman's term parang siya kanang ice cream mo rang gi-twirl, no? And the other one is onion or bulbous type of dome, no? Pointed on the top part. Although it's kind of look like serrated, but the bulbous domes, they don't use this lines, not visible lines, but the materials they use is nasa siya'y certain unsay nasa yang kanang murag treatment sa yang material. So it's not flat, nasa yung mga certain texture here sa material. So gitawag siya onion or bulbous type. It's kinda look like serrated but without the lines going through here and here. So again, there are 5 types of dome. We have the simple one. So we have the usual dome itself, the dome on a circular plan, and the dome on a rectangular or a square plan, which is what we called the pendentive dome or dome pendentive. So another one is the compound. So what do they do sa compound? They've combined the 2 types of dome, which is they combined the simple domes, which is the pendentives and the domes. So they created here a dome on top of a pendentive. And the other type is dome. They have a cylindrical portion, which is you call drum, on a pendentive. So these 2 are the compound types of dome. And they have these 3 special designs, which are called melon, serrated, and onion or bulbous sharp type of dome. Murag onion kanang sibuyas gid siya forma na. If you're familiar, I think wala na ko nabutang diri sa ako ang mga examples later on. An example of a onion or bulbous type of dome is the St. Basil's Cathedral in Moscow, Russia. So if you can research about that one, that's one of the best example of onion type of dome. Kanang colorful kayo nga cathedral, no, in Moscow, Russia. So for the columns, used constructively in order to support galleries, subordinate features as massive piers and walls support the superstructure. The superstructure here means the dome and the main roofing, with monolithic shafts provided with bronze annulets under the capital and above the base. So here, the Roman, Ionic, Corinthian, and composite capitals were sometimes used. No? So sa ilahang mga poste on the capital, this part, no, sa ilahang mga post, they used naiuban combination of Ionic, Corinthian, and composite. So if you remember sa inyong Greek architecture, I think na-discuss na ninyo ang kaniyang types of capitals. Another contribution also during the Byzantine architecture is a new cubiform type of the capital with a deep abacus or dosseret block. So later on, makita na siya sa mga examples nato in Byzantine architecture. In the later part, makita na to siya nga examples. So for the moldings, since mostly gigamit nila ang marble and mosaic on the walls and arches, moldings are quite few in terms of application in the interior part of the church. So, but there are some churches na ilang gibutangan og moldings. So internally, belay moldings were used to frame decorative panels or marble and mosaic. So what do they do since na sila marbles, like for example, no, sa ilahang walls, so for example, if mo na ilahang walls, if na sila ipang butang nga mga marbles, mosaic, and so on and so forth, they frame it with moldings. Ilan ang i-framed. So if nasa sila mosaic, frame na sila nila another molding, another mosaic here, and so on and so forth. So they frame para siguro na distinct form sa ilang pag-provide sa marbles and mosaic. So they framed it with moldings. But ilang moldings nila is kinda dili kay nga naka-intricate ang designs, just basic molding framing this marbles and mosaic. Another moldings that they use is flat splayed moldings with insist moldings were also used. That means aside sa kanang makita ang molding, aside sa type sa molding ay tanawan nimo sa section, mo siyang matago ana. Ayan na. So if mo ni mohang sectional sa wall, that part ilang itago, no, mura siya kanang naka ning sulod bitaw. And then nga sa lang part mo butang sa ilang mosaic sa surface. Okay? It's either flat, pwede flat or pwede ilang ipatago gamay ana, ilang molding. Okay? So for the ornaments, this one, daghan silang mga ornaments during this time. This is the part wherein they've collected or they get their stones, their marble stones from other areas, ilang quarry. And then when they get that marble stones, ang ilang mga sculpture or sculptor during the time is kind intricate in terms of drawing or in terms of applying these ornaments. So general character, usually they use flat colored pictures as a general character. So if makita nimo mga ornamentals from basic na mga leaves, ornaments, flowers, yan na. Another one is the internal walls lined with marble. So the veining carefully arranged to form patterns. So na yung mga patterns here. So aside sa capital or sa column itself, ilasa na silang gidala, no? They use it sa ilahang walls. So for the vaults and upper walls, sheathed with glass mosaic pictures of symbolic figures. So katong mga saints, ilan ning ipang present or ilang ipang the way they do these symbolic figures katong mga santos, no, ilan nang gigamitan og mosaic pictures. So ining tanan nimo sa layo mura na siya og mga flat colored pictures, but actually dili siya ingong colored nga gi-print gid nila nga butangan to kay wala pa may printer during the time nga maka-print on that kind of big. So what do? Ang ilang mga artists, they get a lot of colored nga mga tiles na pwede nila piece by piece arrange it so they can symbolize a certain saint. So sa gawas sa layo makita nimo flat colored pictures ang dating niya. But for the pavement, finished with colored marbles and mosaics. So, ingani siya forma, no? Nga na. So, ilahang mga floorings, I think in our churches, in our old churches, I think napay mga ingani nga type of marbles, no? So, those ideas really originated from Byzantine architecture. Kana siya nga type of artwork. So, nana siya mga certain tawag, no? But just try to remember this one. Medyo taas lang kay siya paminawon pero just try to remember it. Opus Alexandrinum, so black and white tesserae on white background. We have opus sectile, plain or colored, so in slab form. Don't worry, di na ko na siya appeal sa exam kay lisod kayo lisod kayo is spelling at the same time lisod kayo i-remember. So just try to ano lang review on this one kay I don't know basin sa inyo hang board exam gawas ni siya nga term. Opus Alexandrinum, black and white tesserae on white background, this one. Opus sectile, plain or colored in slab form. So kani siya kani usa ni kaslab. Sa kaslab. Yan na. So colored na siya na siya. But all of these are made of marbles. Marbles ni sila. So carving patterns were incised instead of raised. So ang ilahang carving is kanino murag ilahang dili siya inighikapon nimo is kind of flat. Dili siya ingon nga nag-carve sila on this stone and they provide another color of this stone. Like here, no? Nag-carve sila ani nga stone, they provide another color here, they provide geometrical figures, triangles. But if inyo nahikapon, that is just flat. Wala na siya ingon nga kanang makita nimo nga naay ning embossed. So that's the type of art that they do during the Byzantine architecture. So aside from the kato nga mga marbles, no, they also have these motifs. So they have this symbolical and ornate in nature. And we have these types, no, na mga popular kay sa una. No? We have the peacock symbol of immortal life. So kani siya made of mosaic. So tiles na siya, made of tiles, lot of tiles. They form it into a peacock, which is a symbol of immortal life. And we have this endless knot, symbol of eternity. We have also these sacred monograms of Jesus Christ. And we have another religious images. Before na mga kanang saints, kanang mga statue gid bitaw sa saints, they've used symbols before, marag symbols lang sa aside from the statues. Because there's a certain time wherein bawal ang mga statue. So ang ilang gibuhat is ang mga mosaic, buhat sila kay ani mga symbols lang sa before nahimo ang mga statues. Okay. Any questions so far? So if you have any question, just let me know sa chat na to. Okay. So here we have our terminologies. So this is from the Visual Dictionary of Architecture, 5-decade chain. So again, this is one of our reference book for this subject, Visual Dictionary of Architecture. This one, no? Pendentive. So we've talked about this and during the types of dome. So unsa ang pendentive? So the pendentive is a triangular curved overhanging surface by means of which a circular dome is supported over a square or a polygonal compartment. So again, no? Pendentive is the triangular curved overhanging surface by means of which a circular dome is supported over a square or a polygonal compartment. So if mo na siya ang dome class, if this is the dome, this one here is the pendentive. This part here is the pendentive. So if you notice, the base here is not square. I mean, it's not circle. The base here is square or might even rectangle. So when they created a dome, naghimo na sila og kaning what we call the pendentive. So the triangular portion here, this one here is the pendentive. So actually, that pendentive, pwede na siya walay dome actually. Pwede na mo na i-pendentive dayon. But mostly, no, to make it higher, to make it bigger, since the characteristic or character of Byzantine architecture is verticality, para mo taas pag yun, butangan pag nilag another dome. So that's what you called dome on pendentives. So this one here, kaning gi-highlight na portion, that is the pendentive. So again, no? Dome this one. And then the bottom part is the pendentive. So, why do they use pendentive? Nagamit sila pendentive for the plants that are not square. So if I mean that are not circle, sorry. So if ang imuhang plano is square or rectangular and then mahigihimo kag dome, you have to create a pendentive. So So if nga na ang imuhang plano, what you will do is magbuhat ka og pendentive. So you'll have this triangular portion here, triangular portion there. So here at the top part, makakreate na ka og circular plan, wherein in that circular plan you can now have your dome na. So this part here kani siyang triangular portion that you've created. This triangular portion that you've created, this part here is your pendentive. So again, anong nigamit sila pendentive? For them to create a dome on a square or rectangular plan. Kaya if square niya mabuhat og dome directly, wala kay pendentive, dili ka kabuhat og dome. Manglapas imong dome somewhere here. Because again, the dome is half of a sphere. Next term is drums or drum. What is a drum? A drum is a round or polygonal wall below a dome, often pierced with windows. So here, for example, no, this one is the drum, this portion. So that's the portion of the drum. So, drum na siya. And this one is your dome, this part here on top. Later on, natay parts ato ay is kana ma-discuss nato ni. Kung saan siya on top pag yun of that dome. Nana siya later on. So here, the drum could extend. Actually, in this illustration, the drum is here. Ayaw makita. But the support of that drum actually extends up to the base. Importante na siyang why do they create drums? The reason is for this part, for this structure, they've created drums in order to carry the domes because the dome is one of the massive part of their construction. Again, some of their domes are made of bricks, made of concrete. So this drums right here is the main support baliog sa ato pa ng design karon mo na siya ang main na column or shear wall sa imong construction. So ang imong makita nga drum is just this one but it really extends up to the base of the church so that it can hold this massive dome. Okay. Next term, minder or labyrinth fret. So again, I think na-discuss na to before na minder, di ba? I think some of the slides nagpakita nga to minder or fret. And then nato ito isa chevron or herringbone pattern. So fret is involved in kanisya turnings. Kana bitawng mga ornaments na continuous ang lines. So here, like here, continuous ang lines. It's either you call that fret. So these are just patterns, no? Nga ilang buhaton sa ilahang mga kanang kilid sa walls para dili bitaw blank ang ilahang interior. They've used those patterns for them to have a rich interior. So you have frets, labyrinth, fret, or meander. So another patterns that they use, they have chevron. So muna akong giingon ganyan, no? Chevron or the herringbone pattern. So a way of assembling in diagonal or zigzag fashion. So either ing ani pagka-arrange ang chevron or pwede sa nimo i-arrange like this. I'll do some sketch. No? Kana bitong tiles sa inyong kitchen counter. You could have it in chevron pattern. Yan. So before, during the Byzantine architecture, gigamit na siya nga pattern. Chevron pattern. So nga, makita mong tiles nga na, or nga ni siya. It's called chevron. It could also be herringbone pattern. But mostly ang ginagamit na nga term is chevron. So aside from this kanang tiles that you've patterned in chevron, it can also be depicted or makita ninyo no sa ilang mga archways. So here you can see the chevron pattern. Kita ninyo. If you notice this part right here, this is the, wait lang, akong pen di pa mo change color. This is the tile, kanang color blue, no? That's the tile that they use. Yan nagporma. So ang chevron is always nakay tile or certain material nga yan nagporma. Or yan nagporma. Or it could be a like that, a rectangle, but you have to place it diagonally. So, para makahimo kag chevron pattern. So again, no, this part of the archway, they've used a chevron pattern. So, sir, how about we, if ever, sir, magamit may chevron pattern nowadays, again, pwede nyo siya gamitin sa kanyang mga kitchen counter, kanabit ang kitchen counter, yan naka mo yung mga back wall, the splash board, pwede na siya gamitin na chevron. And also in some buildings, their exterior walls, right now, no, sa current na architecture style, ilang gamitan og mga chevron pattern. So example, right that. They've used wood ilang gigamit. So if you notice, kani siya nga type of pattern is chevron or herringbone. No, wood ilang gigamit but nakayana nga pattern. Another term we have here is centering. So centering is a temporary structure upon which the materials of a vault or arch are supported in position until the work becomes self-supporting. So before, if magnakay mga archway or mga arc, nakay mga support until mabutang nimo ang keystone or kaning stone on top of the arc. Diba? Mao man siya naghatag of aside from the support from this part here, this one really locks iyang ilock ang tibuok nimo nga arc. So I think you're very familiar na no with the parts kay medyo mo na siya ang daghan kayo yung terms nga magawa sa board exam no kanang mga parts sa arc. So again, from the term itself, centering mo na siya no kani siyang support. It's usually made of wood. So this one, centering, gigamit ni siya sa arc. But for the dome, makita mo, daghan kayong mga wood nga ni. So, sa karon pa na, sa ato pa na nga term, gitawag siya formworks. No, forma ba? No, formworks. So if na kay mga plywood, di ba? Mao na iporma nimo sa imong columns, sa imong slabs, imong beams. Before centering ang term nila. So just a quiet review. So these are the parts of an arc. No? So keystone, you have the hunch, entrados. The entrados is the inner radius. The extrados is the outer radius. Kaning in between springing and keystone, you have the bourgeois or bouchures. So ano po pronounce. So the first one here, kaning siya, is the springing. After that one, you have this bourgeois. And then the last one, we have the keystone. And entrados for the inner, extrados for the outer. Okay, so kana lang ang mga terms. Pwede na yun na gamitan later on. Another term we have here is annulets. So annulets is a small molding, usually circular in plan and square, or angular in section, especially one of the fillet, encircling the lower part of the Doric capital above the necking niya siya. So kanino mga ano, more siya ka ng mga linya or more siya ka ng mga rings. So before sa top part sa imong capital, for example this one no, na siya Doric on this part, na siya mga annulets. Okay. Another term is minaret. So if you notice sa katong mga example buildings, katong gipakita pag-una, Haya Irene, I think Haya Irene atong na-present no. Makita nimo na yung mga tower. So again no, ang theme sa Byzantine architecture is verticality. So aside from the dome nga naay tower also at the center, another part is naani siya no, minaret. So a tall tower in or contiguous to a mosque or church with stairs leading up to one or more balconies from which the faithful are called to prayer. So dili lang ni siya kay ang iyang purpose is to make your building vertical in nature or vertical in terms of form, but diha sila mutawag. If you notice, Byzantine architecture also on the other part of the country, nag-start na sa ng Islamic architecture. Wherein, I don't know if nagkapihanay sila sa ilang type of architecture, but they also have this minaret. And they also have domes. So if you notice here, ang term is mosque. It's because during the Byzantine architecture, another type of architecture occurs on the other side of the country, which is the Islamic architecture, which is literally diha nila itawag itong kanang, di ba, sa Islam or Islamic, I don't know if kapila na sila mga in a day, but I think 12, 3, I think in every 3 hours na sila call sa ilahang pagpangadji no. Sa tuwa is bagting raman sa bell, di ba? Every 6 p.m., 12 noon, bagting ang bell. Sila is literally na tao nga rin magsagit-sagit diri sa minaret sa tower. So minaret is not just for Byzantine architecture. Gigamit siya sa Islamic architecture. Wherein later on sa few parts sa ato ang subject ma-discuss na to ang Islamic architecture. Okay, so we have the dosseret block. So a deep block sometimes placed over a Byzantine capital in order to support the wide bouchures of an arc or wall. So ingani no. Again, what do they do here is katong ilang mga nakuha ng mga marbles, they carve it, provide a lot of ornaments, a lot of details here, and then muna ilahang design sa ilahang capital or sa ilahang on top of their column. So what do we call the tower on top of the dome? That's what you call lantern. So again, no? Asa naman to kung pang sketch? We have the pendentive. Marami forma ang pendentive. Sorry. Pendentive, drum, na dome. On top of the dome, napagi another tower. Nga naangad to ang cross. So what do you call that tower? So that tower is lantern. So lantern ang tawag kana niya. But if you notice class kanang lantern, dako kana siya nga lantern. This one here in Florence Cathedral, although this is not Byzantine architecture, but still they use this dome with lantern. Kita ni mo ang scale sa tao. Diba? If you notice, mo ni ang tao. Mo ni ang scale sa tao. And look at the scale of that extension right there. Grabe ka dako. Dili kay gamay ra ni siya nga extension sa ilahang tower on top of that dome, but still that's a big structure. So that's what you call lantern, or a window superstructure crowning a roof or a dome. So a tower or a cimborrio raised above a roof and pierced to admit light. Okay, so I think 7:30 naman, 7:31 na actually. So we will continue this on our next meeting. So our next meeting is, since holiday this Thursday, okay. Kabalo naman, I think kabalo naman sa calendar, no? Nga holiday this Thursday, September 9. So we will continue our discussion on the 14th. And at the same time, we will start Romanesque architecture. So on the 14th, on September 14, di ako muhatag sa inyohang sketch requirement or skis requirement nga inyong submit before the midterm exam. I think the midterm exam is scheduled on 23, 24, and 25. So probably our midterm exam is on the 23. So our topic for the midterm exam is early Christian, Byzantine architecture, and Romanesque. I think up to Romanesque. Usata mag-Gothic and so on and so forth. So for the next meeting, September 9, I will just share some of the slides that I have for Byzantine and Romanesque architecture. Para na mo'y mabasa-basa, like, sir, laay kayo sir kanang during Y classic, kayo ako'y mabasa-basa. So, sige, I will give you some, pwede niyo ma-review. But we will discuss, don't worry, tanan nga akong ihatag ninyo nga mga references. We will discuss it on our next meetings. So 14 and 16. Probably we can have another quiz siguro on the 16th. Probably on the 16th. That's about Byzantine architecture. Okay. So if you have any questions, just let me know. You can chat within the group, or if maulaw mo sa group, you can chat directly if you have questions and if you need some clarifications. Okay, so just let me know din, no, sa katong mga wala naka-join para ma-note na ko sila na was naka-join due to circumstances na out of their control. Okay, so thank you everyone and have a good night. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Pwede na ako na-on akong camera din. Off camera din ko. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.